Hello readers and writers, I'm MJ and today we're going to be going over nonfiction book recommendations. So this video is going to be fairly eclectic in the book recommendations. I want to kind of recommend a little bit for everyone, specifically with Nonfiction November, to try and do a little bit of recommendations for individuals no matter what their preferences are. This is definitely not an inclusive list, and so I do plan on this becoming a series that I continue on to do even more non-fiction recommendations. So the first set of books that I want to recommend are books that are science-based histories. And the first book I have for this is The Radium Girls. So this is a book that tells about the Radium Girls. So the girls that used to work in a watch factory that worked with radium and the health challenges they had with that. It's very science-based, but it's a historical science-based and is based upon true things that have actually happened. It was extremely well written. It might look a little big, but due to the narrative style, it's actually a fairly fast read. I highly recommend it's one I definitely want to pick up again soon, just because it was so impactful. But definitely suggest that you read it. The other one along the same lines I actually owned via audiobook, and this is probably the most impactful nonfiction book I have ever read, and it is The Immortal Life of Henrietta. And this book covers the science of cells and the impact that Henrietta Lacks' cells have had on our society, but also the historical aspect of how Black Americans are treated in healthcare currently, but also historically, and the fact that this woman's cells could be harnessed without any consent. For me, this is actually the book that hit hardest how very little removed we are from slavery in our society, from I don't want to say racism, because we're still a racist society, but the civil rights movement, all of that happened from before I was born, but it really did not happen very long ago. And I think this book is the first book that made me conceptually understand that. So there's a lot of science in it that's very fascinating and very well written, but it's very personal. You get a very intimate knowledge into Henrietta Lacks' family and into her life. And I think of all of the books that I have read on racism, for me, this was the most impactful, because it was intimate and concrete, and just it didn't happen that long ago. And so this is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. One of the top books to change who I am as a person, and I highly recommend. And kind of on those same lines, for books on anti-racism, I recommend you check out White Fragility. This is a book written for white people on why we need to get over ourselves and be uncomfortable, and why that's not only okay, it's necessary. Is this a perfect book? Absolutely not. But it's a really, really good starting point in an anti-racist journey. It's a really good... Sometimes it is easier to accept truths from someone who's similar to you, and not this is a white author talking about anti-racism, which isn't always a great thing, but in this case I think it's necessary to start that conversation and to start that dialogue. And so yes, it's not the perfect book, it's not where a journey should end, but I do think it's a really, really great starting point, and I do think if you are white, you should pick up this book. And so also I want to recommend So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Olu, who is a Black author that has a conversation with you about race, not just with African Americans, but also coming from other racial perspectives, and like includes topics such as what is racism, what is intersectionality, and why do I need it? Intersectionality is an extremely important concept. What is the school to prison pipeline? Why can't I say the N-word? I guess I don't really understand why that's such a hard concept, but what are microaggressions? There's another one. Oh, is police brutality really about race? So there's a lot of really, really important content in here, a lot of things that may not be easy to discuss as a society. It may not be easy to read. But it is all extremely important, and it's just a really good book, and highly recommend you check it out. Now, from another perspective, I really, really like reading books about science and physics, and so for my science recommendation, I have The Physics of the Future by Miko Kaku, and this is a really famous physicist that writes a lot of books. I highly recommend you check all of his books out, but I really like this one because it's talking about the physics, like the future and future technology, and I really had fun reading it because half the technology in here we already have, and I think that was honestly the joy of reading this book, to see how far we've come as a society, where we fell short, where we have overachieved, and according to the timeline that he originally estimated. And it's a really fun book. So now I'm going to move into LGBTQIA books that I recommend. And the first one is Genderqueer. This is a graphic novel that has been banned in so many places. It can get semi-graphic at times just because it talks about anatomy and puberty and such. It does talk about sex. And so know that going into it, but it also has a lot of extremely important conversations about gender identity and physical bodies, and I really enjoyed this book. Highly recommend it. In addition, How to They Them. This is another book that is a lot of easy reading, but helps you understand, you know, they, them, non-binary pronouns, and just kind of better understand a non-binary gender identity. So if that's something you are more interested in, something you're exploring for yourself, or just want to understand why individuals such as myself are non-binary and use they, them pronouns, this is a great book to pick up, and it's not hard to read. And kind of as a bridge, I have the memoir, Uncomfortable Labels. This is written by a trans autistic author that is just her memoir of what it's like to be trans and autistic, go through gender conforming treatment in the UK. It's really short, but it's very interesting and will tell you a lot about autism and a lot about being trans, and it's really a great book. And another book on autism that's nonfiction that I highly recommend is also another memoir novel, Autistic in Heels. And I like this one because it's a very feminine approach to autism, which is not always something that is talked about. Autistic individuals tend to be very gender non-conforming, and so I like the conversation of, hey, there really are femme autism individuals, and this talks about femininity and autism from a memoir perspective. Again, not a hard read, but a very, very interesting one. This should be the 10th, but if you want just an anthology about disability, I highly recommend Disability Visibility, where it is a whole collection of different essays that are written from different perspectives about different spectrums, individual spectrum on the disability, different individuals on the disability spectrum, because there's so many different ways to be disabled, and this kind of includes a lot of them. So this is a really, really great collection, and I highly check it out. I highly recommend you check it out. So here are some ideas about what you could read for nonfiction, and as always, keep reading, keep writing, and until next time.